Fans of Apple's MacBooks have put a lot of expectations on Apple's next generation of MacBook Pros. So much so, in fact, that you may think that there is no way that these MacBooks can live up to your expectations. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Greg here, and there's no denying that I am incredibly excited for the next generation of Apple Silicon Macs. I mean, if you couldn't tell, it's been a topic on my channel I talk frequently about. Not that I'm out of video ideas. I mean, it has been a while since Apple has released a new product, but regardless, I am genuinely excited for these new Apple products, and based on the comment section in these videos, it's something you all are excited for as well. However, as we get closer to the inevitable launch, please be soon, of this new MacBook, it's important to take a step back and ask ourselves, are we getting too excited for these products? And are we getting ourselves overhyped for something that might actually disappoint us? Well, to answer this question, I've spent an ill-advised amount of money and hired a crack team of rumor and leak investigators to bring us through this journey to find out how we should set our expectations for Apple's next Apple Silicon MacBook Pro. Together, we will tackle this question, so sit back, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and for those of you that are already subscribed to the channel, well, come on, what are you doing? Hit the like button. Don't make me, you know what, I'm not even gonna say it. I don't want this to appear in the court of law. Listen, you just know this video is going to be extremely mediocre. I mean good, extremely good. I swear, I'm not out of video ideas. Just look at the expert I hired. Very credible, very different. Not me, definitely not me. I don't have a mustache, it can't be me. All right. Let's get our heads in gear. So let's start with the design. Like all good product refreshes, we are expecting a design shakeup with the next generation of MacBook Pros. Now, we've seen numerous concepts for this type of MacBook Pro redesign, starting with designs that go full bezel-less, designs with rounded display corners, and crazy bonkers designs with extended full displays and touchscreen keyboards. So, what design should we realistically expect here? Well, according to Apple supply chain leaker Kuo-Ming Shi, the next generation of MacBook Pros should have two distinct models, a 14-inch size option and a 16-inch size option. And according to Kuo, these new MacBook Pro machines will feature a flat edge design which will look similar to the latest iPhone 12. Many interpret this wording in that the design will be a more radical departure from what we have now with our current MacBook Pro design. But this rumor sounds a little fishy to me. The MacBook Pro design already has flat edges. They already look like the design of the iPhone 12. Sure, maybe a boxier design could be incorporated, but as it stands right now, the current MacBook Pros aren't curved like the previous iPhones were. Now, the 14 and 16-inch display size, that seems to be accurate, based on almost every rumor and leak I've read from various sources seem to indicate that these will be the display sizes that Apple goes with for the next MacBook Pros. And if we look at evidence from rounded software with macOS Big Sur, it's easy to imagine a rounded display similar to what we have with the latest iPads. However, that brings in a conflicting rumor from Mark Gurman, who says that the new MacBooks will look similar to the current versions with just minor design changes. This sounds less ambitious than how Kuo described the MacBook Pro update, but it really depends on what Gurman considers a minor design change and what Kuo considers a new design inspired by the iPhone 12. Now, one of my favorite renders that I've seen recently is done by Ian, and I think this looks like a much more conservative estimate of what design we should expect with the next MacBook Pros, with the display bezel on the 14-inch model looking very similar to what we got with the design of the 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, this may not be the design we want. I know that I would personally like to see a bigger overall bezel reduction, especially on the top bezel, and I would love to see rounded corners. It would just give a cool, fresh look to this next generation of Apple Silicon Macs, and it's very fitting because this would be a new chapter for those MacBooks and Apple computers in general. Now, there's more to design than how rounded the corners are. There is also the functionality of the design, which I think most people admit that Apple has taken a step back in functionality with the 2016 MacBook Pro design. Well, unlike the design concepts, it seems we have more concrete evidence that Apple will be making this design more functional in a few ways. First of all, a return to normalcy with the traditional function key row and the removal of the not loved, not necessarily hated, but kind of in the middle touch bar, mediocre. I think I used that word earlier in the video. The touch bar is something that, although I found nice uses for, I'm personally indifferent to. I also know people that love the touch bar and others who hate it, especially developers who actually use the function key row frequently. And as a pro laptop, the MacBook Pro needs to serve the needs of a wide array of users, from video editors, photographers, musicians, developers, writers, and so on. So the removal of this touch bar for just a less controversial, functional key row seems pretty much assured at this point. I really don't think we're going to get a touch bar on the next generation of MacBooks. There's also the port selection. Again, something most rumors and leaks seem to agree with, that Apple will be returning a few ports it took away in the 2016 MacBook Pro iteration. Ports like the HDMI port and the SD card reader, which are still widely used and haven't been replaced by the promised all USB-C future. There's also the return of the functional and beloved MagSafe charging port, which means you won't have to take up your data ports anymore with a USB-C cable, and it restores the safety feature of ensuring your laptop won't come crashing down to the floor when you accidentally yank one of your cables. Of course, that doesn't mean Apple is giving up on USB-C, with most rumors, leaks, and even some renders seeming to indicate that Apple will keep 4 USB-C ports on the device. Again, I think these renders done by Ian are just amazing. They do a great job showing us how I think the final layout of the ports will actually look in practice. And overall, I do expect this next design to focus on function over form. So even if that means increasing the thickness slightly on the MacBook Pro, or adding a little bit of weight onto the smaller 14-inch model, it wouldn't be unreasonable for Apple to release a 3.5-pound MacBook Pro when we now have the MacBook Air in the lineup, occupying the thin and light laptop, and with power to boot because of the amazing M1 processor. Speaking of power, that's also an area where our minds have run wild with speculation regarding Apple's next M1X chip, and I think that this chip is going to be insanely powerful. If there's one area you really should continue in hyping up, it's the processor design of the M1X, which could even have double the performance in multi-core over the existing M1 chip, and that's already crazy fast. However, even with our hype on the power of this CPU and its energy efficiency giving us a lot of gains in battery life, we should take a step back in other areas. Now, while the 14-inch laptop might benefit from an M1X integrated GPU, which is rumored to include a staggering 16 core count, we still have to remember that this is still an integrated GPU, and we may still need to wait for a few more iterations of Apple Silicon before Apple can surpass existing dedicated GPU options available on the bigger 16-inch MacBook Pro. That is, unless Apple plans to ship its own dedicated GPU in that version, but to be honest, there just hasn't been any recent rumors in that department, so GPU power may be something that older Intel-based Macs with dedicated AMD GPUs still do better, at least on the bigger 16-inch option. There's also the display. For a while, we have been talking about new mini LED displays going into Apple's next generation of products, from the iPad Pro to the iMac, and of course, the MacBook Pro. Now, while I've told you that I am expecting a big upgrade for these displays with higher brightness levels, better contrast ratios, and extended HDR capabilities, we may also be in for some disappointment here. As I mentioned before, Gurman and Kuo seem to indicate that display improvements are coming to the next generation of MacBooks. However, it remains to be seen if Apple will actually have enough supply for these mini LED displays to go into all of their products, with the global chip shortages seeming to push back manufacturing of some of these products. Apple may need to nix this component for now if they can't get enough supply, and even if they do get an adequate supply for the mini LED displays, we should also realize that while these displays should be a big improvement, they still will in ways be inferior to the OLED displays on modern iPhones, and won't be able to reach the insanely high contrast ratios of those panels or the perfect black levels. There's also a large segment of the audience that believes these next MacBook Pros will come with touchscreen displays. I myself, even after seeing the first iterations of macOS Big Sur, thought the software looked like it was designed with future touchscreen Macs in mind. However, we also have to respect the sources in the supply chain, or well-respected reporters like Gurman, who have basically had zero to say on if touchscreens are coming to the MacBook Pro. So if you were expecting Apple Silicon to jumpstart this process, the recent evidence suggests Apple will not be putting touchscreens into these new MacBook Pros. We also need to set our expectations in with price points, as our crack researcher did some investigations into price points of newly refreshed Apple laptops, like the original Retina MacBook Pro, the 2016 4-port MacBook Pro, and even other products like the 5K iMac. All of these products revealed that when Apple changed the design or introduced new display technologies, it usually resulted in a higher cost product. So while you might be waiting to pull the trigger on the new MacBook, this first generation product could very well be out of your budget. If you were expecting to spend something closer to the first generation of M1X, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed, and even if you were expecting it to maintain the $1,799 price point, it could even be higher than that. This 14-inch model could start at $2,000, and that is an expensive laptop. But let's be real. As an Apple fan, you were probably expecting a price increase already. And honestly, a lot of you who watch my videos may have already thought about all these reasons why this laptop could be overhyped. However, it's also undeniable that the attention, excitement, and momentum are definitely here for Apple to pull off something spectacular and go above and beyond our expectations with this next generation of MacBook Pros. I, for one, am keeping my expectations in check, but I am still also incredibly excited to see what Apple can pull off next. Now, I didn't pay this researcher all of this money just to get some B-roll shots, so please, let us know, Garg. What have you found out all this time we've been talking? What should we really expect for the next generation of MacBook Pros? I'm sure you have good sources. You are very expensive.
Tim Cook is indeed planning a refresh of the 2021 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro. I have gathered tons of sources. I have gone through all the news articles. I watched all the Everything Apple Pro videos, and I am confident that there is a new MacBook coming. So that was the part of my investigation. $100,000, please.
I'm starting to think I severely overpaid that guy. So I'm gonna need opinions. Please let me know what you think we should expect for the next generation of MacBook Pros in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, well, make sure you're subscribed. If you want to connect with me in any other way, like maybe follow me over on Twitter, I'll leave all the links to my social media in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.
Now you might say this sounds like fake accent, but I dare you! How dare you say my accent fake? How dare you! These rumors? I believe me. They're nonsense. I don't like it. Take it away. Take it away. I don't. This stupid channel. What do you guys watch? Apple rumors all day? Why don't you do something important like go to coffee shop and drink espresso or I don't know. I don't know.